All right, Ryan and David back with the B Squad. Today we're talking insurance. You ready?
You know I am.
Let's roll. All right, David, we are back, man, talking insurance, the wonderful, awesome, amazing, confusing, wonderful world of company-provided insurance.
Yeah, oh yeah, you know it.
Yeah, man. So what do you got for us today?
We looked at the board of topics and just tried to pick out the most boring one.
Oh yeah,
so that's what we're doing
totally.
today.
Hey,
yeah.
Some people think it's interesting.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, insurance, health coverage. You know, for the most part, everybody needs it. Doesn't matter if it comes from source A, source B, source C. It's a pretty good idea to have health insurance. I think everybody knows that. Yeah, the question comes down to should, as a traveler, you take insurance through the travel company that you're working with or not? You know, and sometimes it's a big decision. Sometimes it doesn't matter. So you see out there, most companies worth their salt are going to have what we call day one insurance. So that'll vary. A lot of companies will be under the guidelines of the insurance broker, whether it's Cigna, United, Humana, Blue Cross Blue Shield, whoever it might be. Typically, they're going to have parameters around enrollment. So they might say day one, but they're bound, and it's not the agency's fault. They're bound by the policy of the insurance company to where they have to wait until the next first of the month.
Could be the size of their policy too.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and then a lot of times you can retroactively start the coverage to where you might start your assignment on the 10th of the month, and you can enroll effective the 1st of the month, but you're paying for the whole month. So there's ways to do it. But each company is a little different. But if you come across a travel agency that doesn't have that day one or day one first of the month coverage, then tell them to get with the times, because pretty much everybody has that out there. If you're on a 90-day assignment, 13 weeks, I mean, geez, if you got to wait 30, 60 days for coverage,
want it to kick in as soon as you can.
You might as well. Yeah, you want it to kick in as soon as it can. So that's one thing that you see as a common theme. There's many different kinds of insurance. There's medical, dental, vision. A lot of companies have life insurance policies, disability, dismemberment policies, and there's lots of different levels for each, just depending on the size of the company, the level of their plan. Many companies have the silver, gold, bronze plan, different things. So it's just whatever works for you. As an adult, you look at it and make your choice. But the big thing is are you covering yourself? Are you covering dependents? You see a lot of, health coverage is expensive with most companies out there, whether you're, a small boutique firm or whether you're a $100 million or $1 billion company. Health coverage it's an expense and it's going to cost. And so if you add dependents, you typically see that price is going to go up. And you'd be surprised. Some companies that are smaller have really good plans. They negotiated a good deal with their broker, and cost is sometimes even more efficient than some of the bigger companies out there, and coverage levels can be different. So find a plan that works for you through your agency. Make sure that you're making the right decision that impacts you financially. Find out the costs up front before you start working with the company if that's important to you. All those factors come into play.
So good question to always ask is, how much am I responsible for? How much is the agency responsible for?
Yeah,
right?
Correct. Different companies will have different agreements with their insurance brokerages, whether they cover 50% of the premiums of maybe only certain coverages, medical and dental, or they might cover 100% of all of them. Usually there's going to be some financial responsibility on the part of the employee, which would be the traveler. So you want to find those things out. What will you be paying? What portions? Will they be taken out monthly? Will they be taken out per paycheck? Whether that be weekly, or some of the few companies that still pay bi-weekly. Those are things you want to ask.
And so some of the bigger costs are obviously medical insurance. I mean, those are big. But I mean, beyond that, I mean, dental's really not that expensive. Vision's really not that expensive. Life is really not that expensive.
Yeah, you can see dental coverage for just a few bucks a week typically, or less.
I always encourage people. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, our agency, I mean, we cover 100% of vision and life. So it's like, take it. Why not? I mean, you might as well have it. Yeah, might as well.
Yeah. So and just depending on the company, sometimes health coverage impacts pay package. Sometimes it doesn't. It might surprise some travelers how little of an impact it actually has on a pay package if they're just covering themselves, and you might be shocked. It doesn't swing the pay a huge amount per week.
Yeah.
It's a pretty minimal impact. I think a lot of people will put emphasis on that. And again, each company's different. Maybe some companies have their structure differently to where costs are higher, it impacts pay differently. Yeah. You might be surprised when you get out there and explore.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, truth time. I mean, everybody, every time you look at adding cost to a contract, right? I mean, it's going to affect things in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I mean, if the agency tells you that it's not, that's not necessarily 100% true. There's cost involved, and they're going to manipulate, their margin, which we'll probably talk about sometime down the road in terms of margins. But I mean, that's the truth.
Yeah. And there's other options out there. The agency isn't the end all be all when it comes to health coverage. There's individual brokers that you can work with out there. I've seen a large amount of brokers who've begun to specialize in providing insurance coverage for travel healthcare clinicians. And some of those you run into that they'll ask you questions like, hey, does your employer offer coverage? And if they do, then sometimes they'll run into hiccups being able to get you covered if you're able to get it through your company. So those are things you want to ask if you're working with a third-party broker. But those can be beneficial because that coverage goes with you everywhere you go. If you change agencies, or if you maybe take a permanent job for a little bit or something and don't want to enroll in those coverage, you can keep your individual coverage. So that's an option. That can also be a more cost-effective option if it's too expensive if you're covering an entire family through a travel firm. And also, if you have other members of your family that you're able to be covered under, whether it's a spouse, or if you're a younger clinician and you're still, of the age that you can be covered by your parents potentially. Most coverage plans still allow you to do that until you're 26. Look into those options. It may not be something you think about, but if you have a significant other who has benefits through their employer, you can ask, hey, could I be covered on your plan? What would that look like? So look into all your options. This is usually not something that is a major slowdown in terms of getting an assignment, but you want to be smart about it. Most companies will have an enrollment window, usually 30 days after you start, so you've got time to figure it out. But it's ideal if you can get it figured out up front, just in case you're working with a company where it does have a heavy impact on your pay package, whether you enroll or don't enroll. It's smart to look into those.
So typically most people in our industry pay weekly, right? So premiums typically will come out weekly as well, right? So that kind of helps with, just the process of getting paid and kind of, reducing the amount that you pay out every single.
Correct. Yeah. And if you're a traveler who really has that spirit for adventure, and whether you're off the bat going to go to many different states, or if that's a plan in the future, if you're connected with a company that does have health coverage, ask them and make sure that it's nationwide. There are certain subsets of plans that will be specific to certain providers in certain geographic areas. Most are going to be nationwide.
Just what does that in-network look like?
Correct. Yeah. You always want to just check on those little things because they can make a big difference.
Makes a big difference. Something that I didn't put down our notes to talk about, but it's worthy of talking about, which is telehealth. I mean, a lot of what we offer too is, you've got the telehealth docs that you can call in, and you're on assignment, and maybe you don't have time to go to, go see a doc or whatever the case is, but you can utilize an app and you can call in. I mean, what a pleasure that is. I mean, I've used that multiple times with my family, and so I think it's fantastic.
Yeah,
I love it.
Easy. You can do it from your Airbnb.
Oh, totally.
Get a prescription for some antibiotics and be back on your way.
Yeah, and ready to rock and roll. Especially when you're on the road and you don't really know anybody and you don't really know where to go.
Exactly.
So,
right on. That's good stuff.
What else, man?
I think that's all. Look into those options. Find out what's worked best for you.
I'll tell you what, man.
Well, we don't have our hats, so we had to do something.
We can do something different.
Less enjoyable.
Very good. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Hey, thank you guys so much for coming back and seeing us. Insurance is just not always the funnest thing to talk about when it comes to contracts, but I mean, you need to ask the tough questions. We always try to offer up as much information as we can. We've got wonderful, reading documents, all that kind of stuff that people can read through. But we actually break it down in a spreadsheet for everybody so they can see their cost, our cost. So it's all out there and just transparent as possible, right? So when you're asking those tough questions, do it. I mean, it's for your benefit. So thank you so much, guys. We will talk to you soon.